Okay, so now you are familiar with thesis statements. And if you haven't yet watched the video on thesis statements, then it would probably behoove you to do so, because what we're about to go over now is how we introduce those thesis statements. And so you will notice that right down here on the screen, right below introductions, I have given you a map of the 5-paragraph essay that we're learning about. And so even though the paper is going to have 5 paragraphs, we are only going to be concentrating on the introduction section for this video. So the introduction here is highlighted in yellow, and you will notice that our thesis statement that we've already learned how to write is going to be located right at the end of this introductory paragraph. And that's the reason it's called an introductory paragraph, because if your thesis statement came at the very beginning, there would be nothing to introduce. You have already let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, so there's nothing that you really need to tell your reader. But what we do need to do is help them to understand, to give them a reason why we're even about to argue what we're going to argue. So to understand this, let me give you at least a few no-nos, things you should not do when you're starting an introduction. Do not say the line or anything that sounds remotely close to the line, "In this paper I'm going to talk about." Nobody has ever heard that line and gone, "Man, this is going to be good. I can hardly wait to dig into this." Essentially, you would be just as well saying, "Here we go," which is generally not a very good introduction. Don't start arguing your thesis reasons. We learned that your thesis reasons in this 5-paragraph paper they're going to be listed in your thesis statement. Don't mention them prior to your thesis statement, which is going to come at the end of your introductory paragraph. Don't start arguing those points. As we're going to learn in future videos, each of those thesis reasons will be addressed in one body paragraph each. So don't address them in the middle of your introductory paragraph. Simply place them with your thesis statement at the very end of your introductory paragraph. Don't mention the assignment. In Dr. Hefner's English 101 class, we were asked to write about, basically what you are telling your reader is, "I was forced to do this assignment, and so come join me in the misery that is the forced assignment that I had to do." So don't mention the assignment in your introductory paragraph. Don't leave out your thesis statement. This is imperative. This is what lets readers know where it is you are going to be going throughout the remainder of the paper. So make sure that you include that thesis statement at the end. So here are some things that you absolutely positively ought to do. Number one, help your readers understand why in the world you're about to address what it is that you are going to address in your paper. You got to give them some reason why you're going to address what it is that you're going to talk about. So this would be the same as if you had an argument that you were making that from the last video, "I think computers are the worst invention that humans have ever made." It would be really weird to walk up to somebody on the street and go, "Let me tell you why I think computers are the worst human invention." They would probably back away from you, and rightly so. So there's got to be some reason why you're about to talk about what you're going to talk about. And at their best, you really ought to be trying to get your reader's attention in some way. Now, obviously, not every paper is going to be created in such a way that, when somebody reads it, they go, "Oh my God, I can't put this down." But at the very least, you ought to strive for that. You ought to strive to make it as interesting and as engaging as possible. And even though this is repetitive, I'm repeating it anyway because it's imperative that you include that thesis statement. Let your readers know where you're going in your paper. Finally, remember to keep it short. Now, I do not mean that you should absolutely strive to write it in such a way that it is as short as possible. Instead, remember that it is introducing your thesis. That is the job of the introductory paragraph. And so don't get caught up in telling a story or caught up in the topic that you are introducing so much that you forget that you are actually supposed to be writing a paper and eventually composing your body paragraphs. Think of it this way: if you're writing a 2-page paper and you're just wrapping up your introductory paragraph at the end of page 1, you haven't left a whole lot of room to argue your points in the body paragraph. So keep it relative to the rest of the papers. If your intro paragraph is huge and your body paragraphs are shorter than your intro, there's a good chance that you need to pare it down a little bit. Okay, now there are bazillions of different types of introductions that you might use for your paper, and obviously we do not have the time, and I'm sure you do not even have the interest in having me go over even dozens of those. So what I have tried to do is pick 3 different introductory techniques that will serve you well no matter whether you're about to graduate here next semester or you're going to be going on to finish your PhD in a number of years from now. That if the only ones that you ever learned were these 3, they would probably serve you well in most papers that you're going to be writing. Now, 2 things to remember. Number 1, again, these are not the only techniques, so do not get finished watching this video and say, well, I just watched a video and this guy said these are the only kinds that you can write. There are a lot of these. What I'm trying to do is help those of you who are struggling, who are sitting there in front of your computer, typing a line and then hitting backspace and watching the cursor blink for another 5 minutes and then typing a line and backspacing and not being able to get started. I'm trying to give you some examples of introductory techniques that will serve you well. They're not the only ones, but they are ones that will serve you. Number 2, once you do have your introduction written, and you go back and look at it, do not get concerned that maybe you are walking a line between broad to narrow and contrary opinions, because you may very well do that, and that is not a problem. So it does not matter whether or not your introduction specifically fits one of these techniques. It may walk the line between 2, possibly even all 3 of these, and that's okay. That may work wonderfully well. So the best way to show you this, I think, is probably just by showing you examples, and that's what I've given you in this video. Instead of me trying to teach you the technique, I'm just going to show you what they would look like so that you can better understand how to do it. Now, with broad to narrow, what you are doing in this particular introductory technique is you are starting with the broader topic that your thesis claim addresses and working your way down to what you have to say about that particular topic, which is your thesis statement. Now, perhaps your teacher has given you the topic, but if your teacher hasn't and you've come up with this thesis statement on your own, then you can work in reverse and say, what is the topic, the larger topic that my thesis claim is included under? Let me show you how this would look. This is a broad to narrow example. Because work and school are sometimes physically and almost always mentally taxing, many families need to take vacations at some point in the year. Vacations offer them the chances to get away from their busy lives and rejuvenate themselves. However, in order to get the most out of a vacation, families must choose the right place to go. I believe Myrtle Beach is the best vacation spot because it offers nice beaches, wonderful restaurants, and exciting entertainment options. So notice that this person didn't just jump right in with their thesis claim, I believe Myrtle Beach is the best vacation spot, and then start listing reasons. That would be really strange if you just walked up to somebody on the street and started giving them thesis claim and reasons, because the first thing they might say if they didn't start running the opposite direction is, why are you telling me this? So notice this introduction helps people to understand why you're about to talk about Myrtle Beach at all. Myrtle Beach is the topic that you're addressing, but that topic falls within a larger topic, which this person sees as vacation spots. So they start talking about vacations, or this person starts talking about vacations first before he or she moves into Myrtle Beach being the best vacation spot. That works wonderfully well. They may have also talked about coastal areas and that different people like to vacation at different coastal areas, and possibly talked about different coastal vacations before they jumped into Myrtle Beach. So start with a broader topic before you narrow it down to the focus of your paper. Let me show you another one about computers. Part of being human seems to be the act of inventing. We've invented many different ways to make our lives easier and our tasks quicker. The automobile allows us to easily get from one place to another, and the microwave gives us the ability to heat our food in seconds rather than minutes. However, not all inventions have aided humanity. The computer is probably the worst human invention because it has made us lazy, introduced our children to materials they shouldn't be viewing, and created a society where we have lost the ability to talk to one another. So once again, this person hasn't just walked up to us as readers and said, let me tell you why computers are the worst human invention. They have started with a broader topic, which to them is inventing. And they've talked about inventions first before they have narrowed it down to what they see as the worst human invention. So that's a wonderful technique. Work it from a larger topic down to what it is that you have to say about that larger topic specifically. The other technique another technique is a personal narrative, which is essentially a story. Tell your readers a story, so to help them to understand why it is that you are going to address the thesis that you're going to address. I'm going to use the exact same thesis statements and show you how a personal story might work just as well as an introduction technique. Over the years, my family has taken many vacations together. Some have been better than others, though. The worst experience we had was a camping trip to the mountains where we suffered for an entire week as we fought off mosquitoes, black bears, and boredom. Another year we traveled to Columbia, the state's capital, which might be exciting for adults, but the tours of the Capitol building and the historical monuments were not at all interesting to me as a 10-year-old. However, the best vacation we ever took was to Myrtle Beach. The nice beaches, wonderful restaurants, and exciting entertainment options make this the best vacation spot in South Carolina. So notice, we have the exact same thesis at the end, but instead of this person doing a broad to narrow, they have given us a personal story or a series of personal stories here that help us to understand why they're even talking about Myrtle Beach being a good vacation spot. Their previous vacations experiences led them to the conclusion that this is the best vacation that you can take. Obviously, as with most papers, this is personal opinion, so it doesn't mean you won't disagree with it. It just simply means this is this person's opinion. One more personal narrative for the computer one. 2 Christmases ago, I was given my first laptop computer. At the time, I thought this was the greatest gift I'd ever received. After all my friends had one, and I was certain I was missing out on a world of fun and a wealth of education. In the days that followed Christmas, I could be found at all hours of the day in front of my computer. I was constantly sending emails, surfing the web, and playing games. However, by June, I had started to question the value of my gift because I noted I had acquired some really bad habits. I rarely talked to my family like I used to, and I almost never went outside because I couldn't see the screen in bright sunlight. I didn't really like the new me, and I eventually sold my computer to my best friend. My experience has led me to believe that computers are probably the worst human invention, and once again falls right back into that same thesis statement that we saw in the last one. So unlike the last one where he starts with talking about inventions and works his way down to the worst human invention, this story helps us to understand how he got to this particular thesis claim, which is he hates computers and thinks they're the worst human invention because of the reasons he lists. I now understand why he's telling me this. I understand how he got to that point because this personal narrative gives me a little bit of that information. People love personal narratives, but this is also one of these introductory techniques where you will find yourself writing a whole lot only to realize that, oh my God, I still haven't got down to my thesis statement. So keep it short in relation to or keep it at least in relation to your paper. Don't make this your life story from DNA up to the present. Only give them enough of the story that will help to introduce your thesis claim. The last one is contrary opinions, and this works wonderfully well for research papers because it will make you sound smarter than even you think you are. With contrary opinions, you are offering your reader an idea about what other people have said or what other people believe or what other people might believe about this topic if asked. And if it's a research paper, which if you're writing a 5-paragraph essay, it is probably not, but you would include research in your introduction that would show, hey, look, so-and-so has said this, another person has said this, and you know what? I understand what those people are saying, but I disagree with them, or I disagree with part of what they are saying, or they've not taken it far enough. With a 5-paragraph essay, you're probably not going to be doing research, but that doesn't mean it excludes you from using this technique. So let me show you what this one looks like. For their summer vacation, some families in South Carolina prefer to travel to the mountains where they can look at wildlife and spend time relaxing in the woods. Others prefer the history of the state capitol, where they can look at monuments and tour the state house. While these might be acceptable places to vacation, I believe the best option for South Carolina families is Myrtle Beach because, and once again, we have those reasons. So this person has said, look, I understand some people enjoy this, other people enjoy this. Personally, this is what I believe is the best vacation spot. Let me give you one more with the computer one so that you can understand how this works. If asked, many Americans would probably say they couldn't do without their computers. Now, I do want to point out that this is actually an interesting choice of words here, because the fact that this person has used the word many and probably will help mitigate this particular statement, so that, listen to the difference. If asked, Americans would say they couldn't do without their computers. Now, instantly, if you make a claim without those mitigating words, somebody who is reading your paper might say, well, I could do without my computer. I wouldn't. Okay, look, let me fix this. If asked, many Americans would probably say. Notice that those words keep you safe, because you are not saying absolutely every person would say this, because first of all, there would be no way that you could know that. It would be impossible for you to know unless you had the time and the energy to call every single person in America on the phone and ask their opinion. We don't have time for that, so these words help us out. They use them for online banking, shopping, and communication. Others might even go so far as to claim, once again, another mitigating statement, that computers are the best invention ever created. However, I completely disagree with the common sentiments about computers. In fact, I believe the computer is the worst human invention, and once again, we fall right back into that same thesis statement again. So I hope that this has been helpful, and I hope it gives you some ways that you can start to introduce your paper. Use them like you would use a toolbox. The next time you've got to write a paper, take each of these and say, well, let me just try one of these right here, and it might work for you. If not, try the next one. Probably one of the three is going to serve you quite well, and none of these are any better than the other. So I hope it helps, and good luck writing your papers.